Hello and welcome to another Denis Wick Get to Know. And it gives me great pleasure to talk today to Kent Eshelman. And we're going to find out a little bit more about Kent and where he lives and the things he does. So welcome, Kent, first of all, to this interview.
Thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. These interviews have actually been really, really interesting for me. It's the best bit of my job. So I wonder whether you could say a little bit about whereabouts in the United States you live and why you live there.
Yeah, sure. I live in Waco, Texas. That's roughly central Texas. Uh, we have a pretty warm, sunny climate. In fact, it's dreadfully hot in the summer. It's hard to make it through those summers, but we get a lot of nice sunshine in the winter. And I'm originally from Ohio in the Midwest, but I came here for the job at Baylor University, where I've been the professor of euphonium and tuba for the last 14 years. And it's been a great job because I have great students here, euphonium and tuba, and that's the bulk of my work. But it's also a great job because I'm expected to stay active as a performer, and that's always been my passion. So uh, we have a wonderful faculty brass quintet that's been very active performing as well as recording. I perform in the Waco Symphony Orchestra. We do about half a dozen concerts a year, get to play some orchestral repertoire. And then the university has been very supportive of helping me go out and travel and perform. So I've enjoyed going to international tuba and euphonium conferences in Europe and across the United States. The wonderful U.S. Army Band workshop in Washington, D.C. I've performed there a number of times, and I've done some touring as a substitute member of the Sotto Voce Tuba Quartet. Just recently, I have co-founded a new euphonium and tuba quartet called Brass Mammoth. We're just getting off the ground, and we have a number of engagements lined up over the coming year around the U.S. I love that mix of teaching and performing. It's really always rewarding to get to work with the students and to see their growth and to see them go out. So I just count myself lucky to be able to have this wonderful home base here in Waco and at Baylor University, but then to get to have my own projects and the ability to travel and perform and stay active in that capacity.
It sounds very much like the best of both worlds. So no, that sounds fabulous, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that would love to have that situation where they've got the support and the time to do it. Because I guess that's the thing, really, is finding time to do all these different things as well. But that's fabulous.
Yeah.
And so, as a euphonium and tuba player, was that always your first instrument? Did you start on anything else? Do you play any other instruments? I just wondered about that.
Yeah, actually, I started on age 4 on the piano, and I took lessons until seventh grade. And at that point, I had fallen in love with ragtime music, and my piano teacher said, "Look, if you only want to play ragtime, you might not want to just keep taking lessons from me." So I stopped taking lessons, but I started practicing more because I loved ragtime music, and then I fell in love with boogie woogie, and whereas you can learn ragtime from the sheet music, boogie woogie I just learned from recordings and just pause, play, rewind, pause, rewind. And fell in love with boogie woogie. And my older brother's a jazz pianist, and so he got me started with jazz. And I've always loved jazz. And so I began the tuba in the 6th grade, along with piano. My dad is a lifelong tuba player, not a professional, but an enthusiast who's enjoyed playing from 4th grade to present day in community bands, brass quintets. And so when I was a kid, he would always play once a year at the annual Tuba Christmas uh, in Columbus, Ohio. So I'd enjoy going as a kid and hearing 400 tuba and euphonium players together. That left quite an impression. It was always very cold. It was outdoors
Yeah.
in Columbus, Ohio. But Harvey Phillips would come from Indiana University every year and take part in leading the rehearsals and the performance. So that was really great to get to see Harvey Phillips. I still remember some of the speeches that he would give every year about Bill Bell and about the music and Alice Wilder. And yeah, so I got serious about the tuba, and in high school, I was successful in some competitions, which made me believe maybe I could make a go of it. So when I started college, I was a tuba performance major, but I was also studying jazz piano, and very soon I added that as another major. So I did both. It was actually a different degree. So I did both degrees in tuba performance and jazz piano. And outside of school, it just so happened that Ann Arbor and Detroit, Michigan, I was at the University of Michigan, were really some of the best locations for the boogie woogie and ragtime and stride piano players. So I was going to hear them a lot, and I was practicing those styles a lot, even though in school it was more modern jazz. And so I've always loved having both tuba and piano, because you can only practice the tuba for so long, and then
Yeah.
tired and you switch to piano, and and the different styles of music that I just love. So after finishing my bachelor's degree, I decided well, it was clear to me I needed to go more for one or the other, and so I went the tuba route. But I've continued to play piano to this day, and I have opportunities at least a few times a year to perform on piano. And as a matter of fact, my faculty brass quintet here always invites me to play a piano solo on our concerts so that they get a little chop break. So that's one opportunity I have to play some boogie woogie and stride piano. And this quartet I just mentioned, I've just arranged a piece for the three other members plus stride piano. So we're gonna debut an arrangement of Honeysuckle Rose pretty soon.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of your playing then as a tuba player, is there any event that you feel occurred that made you think, yeah, this could be my living. I could do this. This could be my gig. Did something like that happen, or was there a sort of combination of things?
Yeah, well, like I said, some of those competitions were really important for that. After my junior year of high school, I applied for the Leonard Falcone International Competition, and I remember getting the invitation in the mail to come to the semifinals. And I went out to the mailbox, and I got that letter, and I was so happy. I just ran around the yard a few times, and I showed up there at the competition just thinking I was an underdog. And in fact, I remember being in the warm-up room and hearing the other players in my division and thinking, oh, I shouldn't even be here, but I don't belong here. These guys are great. And then I won first place in the competition. And so, yeah, it gives you some confidence. And yeah, I really didn't have too much of a clue of what would lie ahead or what that means to major in tuba performance. But I just had some confidence in terms of going for it. And competitions continued to be really important for me. And another one that was big for me was the Philip Jones competition in Guebwiller, France, which is no longer going. Although now I see there's a Philip Jones brass ensemble competition in England. I don't think it's related, but I went over there. That was my first trip abroad, and that was during my master's degree. And I prepared for that competition just better than I had prepared for anything ever. And you always grow as a player preparing for these events. Even though competition isn't what music is all about, still use those opportunities and the motivation to grow as a player. And then you meet new people by doing them. And so that was part of the thing for me there, going to Guebwiller, France. I made it to the finals and didn't win, but uh, Anthony Plogue was the head of the jury, and afterwards he came to me and said, "I really like your lyrical tuba playing, and I've been wanting to write a piece for tuba, a nocturne for tuba and strings, and so could I write that for you?" And I was just blown away, needless to say, and so that led to an opportunity to premiere the piece the next summer at the ITEC in Budapest with the orchestra, and uh, and that was a point where it felt like things were kind of moving from student toward professional, and I just learned a lot from doing that competition, and again gained in confidence, and the more you do, the more you can do. So there were a number of milestones like that along the way.
That's a fantastic story. Thank you very much
Thanks.
for sharing that. And
I'll tell you the other part of that story that always sticks in my mind is that, like I said, I prepared really well, and then I showed up to the first round of the competition. I got to my warm-up room at my assigned time, and somebody's belongings were in the room, and so I thought, well, I've got some time. I'll just wait. And but after waiting around for 15 minutes, I thought, I can't wait too long. I've got to warm up. And so I started to look around, and I found somebody, and I said, whose belongings are in this room? And they said, no. But did you check your new performance time? And I said, no. And he said, yeah, they posted the new times downstairs. And so I went downstairs and I found my name, and to my horror, I was supposed to perform in 10 or 15 minutes. And so I went back upstairs and I started to get my tuba out of the case, and the proctor came and said, "Here we go." And fortunately, it took me down to another warm-up room right by the stage. But I had literally just a few minutes to warm up there. So those were my first notes, and went out on the stage and just played my best. I just remember so vividly how that felt to be out there just nailing it. And yeah, that taught me something about the power of preparation, and how that you can the power of mind over meat, as Arnold Jacobs would say, and how through that level of preparation you really are able to perform well through some adverse circumstances that we often have, whether it be nervousness or no warm up, or too hot, too cold, bad acoustic, whatever it might be.
Exactly. You just have to go with whatever's dealt you,
Yeah.
and then make the most of it. No, exactly. No, that's great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, sure.
So in terms of this is a minefield for me as a lowly trombone player, and only using one mouthpiece at a time, to try and understand the different types of tuba, whether it be the different models or what pitch they're in, and then which mouthpiece combination goes with that instrument, because it seems to be that's the thing. You need to understand that. So I wonder what your take is on that, because which products work well for you and how you find that a certain mouthpiece will work with a certain instrument.
Yeah, my take on it is I really don't understand it. I just know when I try something, I like it. And I guess over the years of trying different mouthpieces, I kind of have a hunch of what affects what. But still, if I think to myself, okay, this is going to be the mouthpiece for me because it's got this specification, and put it on my instrument. Nah, I don't really like that. It just boils down to trying it. And yeah, about 10 years ago, a student actually had switched to a Denis Wick 2SL mouthpiece on his F tuba. And they say you learn more from your students than you teach them. Hopefully that's not quite true, but but in this case, that really, I said, "Can I try your mouthpiece?" And it's got a distinctive look, for one thing. This outer shape. So, and then the underneath flat. So anyway, I wanted to try it, and wow, I immediately was sold on it. and have been playing it. And I do most of my playing on F tuba. This is my Yamaha 822 tuba, which I do really the bulk of my playing because I use it in quintet and as well as solo repertoire. So yeah, this I don't know that I could tell you why, but I just found that this worked for me really well on this horn in every respect. I think a lot of times with mouthpiece or a tuba, you're trading off. Maybe you like the sound of a deeper mouthpiece, but you like the articulation on a shallower mouthpiece, or all these different factors. But I feel like with this 2SL, I can have my cake and eat it too. I like the low range, I like the high range, I like the sound, I like the articulation, response, the feel. So I've been a happy camper these last 10 years on this particular mouthpiece. And that, it's not that I haven't tried other mouthpieces now and then, but it is a happy place to be when you just feel like, yeah, I know I like this. I know this works for me, and I'm not really, torn in this direction and that, trying to think of what other equipment is out there. So yeah, I've been grateful for that. The other thing I've been grateful for is the Denis Wick travel mute. Last summer, I was invited to be the guest artist at the Leonard Falcone International Competition in Michigan, where I would play a full recital, and a concerto with band. And I had actually, when I got the invitation, I had already set up a month-long trip to South Korea to visit my in-laws in Seoul. And so I'd be staying with them for a month in an apartment, and where I really couldn't make too much noise. So I took this travel mute with me. The mute itself is big, but I took it in a suitcase and just practiced on that every day for a month, and came back and took the mute out, and I was ready to go. So that was really a lifesaver for me. And I wish I had it earlier, because I've been in a lot of hotel rooms and the night before an audition, those kind of things where you wish you could do a little playing, but you really can't make too much noise.
Oh, that's great. And I think a lot of people are appreciating that now, that, and the fact that you've got a practice mute that you can use at home, but the travel mute is so convenient in terms of fitting in the bell. You can then take it with you. You can't forget it. You can't leave it on on the plane or whatever. It's in your instrument case. So it works really well. And then finally, in terms of your development as a player, what would you say inspired you more? Was it your teachers? Was it the people that you were playing with in ensembles? Was it recordings? Was it YouTube? What do you think inspired you the most?
Well, they've all been big inspirations. If I had to choose one, though, I would say my teachers. I was really blessed to have wonderful teachers on the tuba from 7th grade through my doctorate, who not only helped me with the teaching every week in the lessons, but through the example, the model of musicianship that inspired me, and the model of just how to be a musician, how to live a life as a performer and professor. And in fact, I still am in touch with my college professors and ask their advice fairly regularly, and I'm still inspired by their recordings. Recordings have been huge for me, and I'm always listening to recordings. And it's funny, you mentioned YouTube, and nowadays I do use YouTube, but that I'm a little I went through college, let's say, before that really came into being. So I got hooked on CDs, and I still am. So I think I'm one of the last. I have got boxes of CDs in my car, always, as my family can attest to, and I'm always listening. And it's not always tuba, especially because that's a little harder to listen to in the car. And I do an hour of driving a day, always listening. And like I mentioned earlier, I love all these different genres of music. And I do believe that somehow it all seeps into your musicianship. And even if listening to a great jazz singer isn't as directly applicable to my tuba playing, still I'm convinced I'm influenced in the way I shape a phrase by listening to Ernestine Anderson, one of my favorite singers, or whoever it might be. So yeah, recordings are huge. I've never felt like tuba, recordings quite capture the sound of a tuba or euphonium like a live performance. So there's no substitute for that either. And I can think back, to vivid memories of live performances at universities and at conferences and orchestra concerts and wherever, that just have that impact on you and give you that inspiration that you need to go to the next level.
Well, it's been great finding out a little bit more about yourself, Kent, and all the things that you do. You sound like a very busy man, and you can see my CD collection in the back there. So I'm with you. That's what I do.
Yeah.
So
I'm still buying CDs. Nobody can believe it. Yeah.
Yeah, we're all getting them for a couple of dollars a time now, and thinking this is
right.
great.
Yeah.
But no, thank you for your time, and I'm sure very soon we'll get in touch to maybe talk to you a little bit more about education and your sort of take on teaching techniques.
Wonderful. Well, I'm honored, and thanks for taking the time to talk with me.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.